Why octopuses are the closest thing to aliens. Imagine you are deep underwater. No light, no sound, just pressure and cold and darkness pressing in from every direction. And then, something moves. Not a fish, not a shark, something else. Something that looks like it was designed by a mind that has never seen Earth. 8 arms, 3 hearts, blue blood, and eyes, terrifyingly perfect eyes, staring directly back at you. You are not looking at a monster from science fiction. You are looking at an octopus. And the more scientists study this creature, the more they arrive at one conclusion that nobody is fully prepared to say out loud. This thing should not exist here. For centuries, we assumed the universe had one template for intelligence: a brain, a spine, a centralized nervous system. Billions of years of evolution pointed in one direction, and that direction was us. Vertebrates, complex mammals, the apex of biological development on this planet. That assumption was wrong. Deep in the ocean, evolution ran a completely separate experiment, an experiment that produced something so biologically radical, so neurologically alien, that scientists have spent decades trying to understand it and are still failing. The octopus didn't evolve the way we did. It didn't follow our rules. And what it became in the process is something that challenges everything we think we know about the nature of intelligence itself. This is not a story about a clever animal. This is a story about a form of mind so different from our own that studying it feels less like biology and more like first contact. The octopus lineage stretches back over 300 million years, before dinosaurs, before the first mammals drew breath on land, long before the evolutionary chain that would eventually produce human beings even began. Octopuses were already here, already ancient, already watching from the dark water with those calculating, unsettling eyes. They belong to the class Cephalopoda, a name that means headfoot, a creature built almost entirely of head, of brain, of reach. And the thing about cephalopods is that they split from our evolutionary path so early, so completely, that the two branches of life, theirs and ours, are almost incomparable. 600 million years ago, the ancestor we share with an octopus was nothing more than a flat worm, a simple, mindless organism crawling through the seafloor mud. From that single point, evolution branched. One branch eventually became vertebrates, us. The other became them. What happened next on their branch is one of the most extraordinary stories in the history of life on Earth. Cephalopods developed intelligence entirely alone, without spines, without the architecture we consider fundamental to complex thought, without any of the biological scaffolding that every other intelligent creature on this planet relies on. They reinvented the mind from scratch, and the result is something that researchers at the Marine Biological Laboratory in Woods Hole, Massachusetts, have described, carefully, clinically, as the most alien intelligence ever discovered on Earth. That description is not metaphor. That is a scientific assessment. Here is where the story gets dark. An octopus has approximately 500 million neurons. For reference, a dog has around 530 million. A chimpanzee has 7 billion. In raw neuron count, the octopus sits somewhere between a dog and a mouse, modest by comparison. But here is what no one tells you about those neurons. Only 30 million of them are in the octopus's central brain. The remaining 470 million are distributed throughout its arms. Each arm is not simply a limb. Each arm is, in a very real sense, a semi-autonomous brain. Each one can taste, feel, decide, and act completely independently of the central mind. Scientists have severed octopus arms in laboratory settings, and the arms continued solving problems on their own, searching for food, responding to stimuli, acting with apparent purpose, without a brain, without a body, without anything we would recognize as a self. Think about that for a moment. Think about what that means. An octopus does not so much have a mind as it is a mind, distributed across 9 separate thinking centers, all running simultaneously, all communicating, all coordinating a creature that is, in some fundamental way, 9 things at once. There is no parallel for this in human neuroscience. There is no framework. There is no analogy that fully lands. This is not intelligence as we know it. This is something else entirely, something we are only beginning to comprehend. But the arms are only the beginning. In 2015, researchers made a discovery so strange it briefly destabilized an entire field of molecular biology. Octopuses, they found, edit their own RNA. In almost every living organism on Earth, genetic information flows in one direction. DNA produces RNA, RNA produces proteins, and that is the end of the story. The blueprint is fixed. The instructions are permanent. You cannot rewrite them from the inside. Octopuses rewrite them. Through a process called RNA editing, they can alter the proteins their neurons produce in real time, effectively reprogramming their own nervous system in response to their environment. Cold water? Edit the RNA. Hot water? Edit the RNA. New predator? New prey? New darkness? New pressure? New threat? Edit the RNA. Human beings edit approximately 3% of our protein coding RNA. Octopuses edit over 60%. They are not just adapting to their environment, they are rewriting themselves to survive it. They are their own evolutionary engineers, making in hours what evolution would otherwise take millions of years to produce. And the researchers who discovered this, the ones who spent years verifying the data before they would believe it themselves, described it in their paper with a phrase that I have not been able to stop thinking about since I first read it. They called it a trade-off with genomic evolution. In other words, octopuses may have sacrificed the ability to evolve across generations in order to gain the ability to evolve within a single lifetime. They chose the individual over the species. They chose now over the future. And that choice produced something that has no equivalent anywhere in the known biology of this planet. In 2010, a single octopus named Paul became one of the most famous creatures alive. He predicted the outcome of 8 consecutive World Cup matches with perfect accuracy, something that statisticians calculated had a less than 1 in 256 chance of occurring by chance. Scientists dismissed it as coincidence. Observers laughed. The internet made him a celebrity and then forgot him. But here is the question nobody asked seriously enough. How does an animal with no capacity for language, no formal reasoning, no access to statistics or history, consistently solve a problem that humans with all of those tools frequently get wrong? We do not know. We still do not know. And that unknowing, that gap between what we observe and what we can explain, is precisely where the truth of the octopus becomes most unsettling. In laboratory settings, octopuses have navigated mazes that took rats significantly longer to solve. They have unscrewed jar lids from the inside. They have recognized individual human faces, distinguishing not just between people, but apparently forming preferences, expressing what researchers cautiously describe as affection toward some handlers and visible irritation toward others. One octopus at a New Zealand aquarium spent weeks every night slipping out of its tank, traveling across the open floor of the facility, entering a neighboring tank to hunt and feed, and then returning, precisely to its own tank before morning, replacing the lid behind it. This is not instinct. Instinct does not plan. Instinct does not maintain a double life. This is something else, something that looks, unnervingly, like strategy. And then there is the question of consciousness. In 2021, the United Kingdom formally recognized cephalopods, including octopuses, as sentient beings under law, not just responsive, not just capable of pain, sentient, capable of subjective experience, of feeling. This was not a symbolic gesture. It was a legal acknowledgement, backed by a formal scientific review, that inside the body of an octopus there is something, an inner world, a perspective, a life being lived from the inside. For most of human history, we drew the boundary of inner life at the vertebrate spine. Mammals feel. Birds, perhaps. Fish, maybe at the margins. But invertebrates, animals without backbones, without our architecture, were assumed to be biological machines. Input and output, stimulus and response, nothing in between. The octopus has forced us to redraw that line. And once you redraw it once, the implications spread in directions that are deeply, quietly, terrifying. If consciousness can emerge from distributed networks of neurons, if it does not require a centralized brain, a spine, a body plan anything like ours, then consciousness may be far more common in the universe than we ever imagined. And far stranger. In 2022, a paper published in the journal Science reported something that stopped researchers cold. Octopuses, they found, display rapid eye movements during sleep. Their skin flickers and shifts through complex, rapidly changing patterns. Color patterns, texture patterns, patterns that appear to correspond to active neural states. The authors concluded carefully that octopuses may experience something analogous to dreaming. They may replay their days. They may process their experiences. They may, in whatever alien form their inner world takes, have something like memory, something like imagination, something like a mind traveling through time while the body is still. We cannot know what an octopus dreams of. We cannot enter that distributed, flickering mind and find the images there. But the data suggests that somewhere inside that impossible creature, something is happening, something private, something interior, something that is not nothing. Here is the haunting part. An octopus lives at most 5 years. The largest species, the giant Pacific octopus, rarely survives past 3. Most common octopuses are dead within 1 to 2 years. They do not raise their young. Most species die shortly after reproduction. The mother may spend months guarding her eggs, not eating, slowly starving, fading, and then she dies before the eggs even hatch. The children are born into a world where their parents never existed, where there is no teaching, no tradition, no accumulated knowledge passed between generations. Every octopus that has ever lived has had to discover the world entirely alone. And yet, they solve mazes, they plan escapes, they may dream, they may feel. Every individual octopus that reaches adulthood has done so by essentially reinventing intelligence from the beginning, with no guidance, no inheritance, no culture. Each one is an entire civilization compressed into a single, temporary life. And when that life ends, when those 500 million neurons finally go dark, when those 9 thinking centers cease, everything that creature learned, everything it knew, every strategy it built, and every preference it held, dies completely. No record, no legacy, no one to remember. There is a theory, quietly circulating in certain corners of astrobiological research, that if we ever do find life beyond Earth, truly alien life, intelligence that evolved somewhere other than here, it will not look like us. It will not think like us. It will not organize itself the way we do, or value what we value, or experience time and consciousness and self the way we do. It will be distributed, perhaps. Fluid, radically embodied, capable of rewriting itself in ways we find difficult to even conceptualize. It may look, the theory goes, something like an octopus. And that is when the real strangeness settles in, because the octopus is not hypothetical. It is not a thought experiment or a science fiction premise. It is here, right now, in the actual ocean of the actual Earth, doing things we cannot fully explain with processes we cannot fully understand, experiencing a life we cannot fully imagine. We have been sharing this planet with alien intelligence for 300 million years. We just weren't looking in the right direction. The next time you see an octopus, in a tank, in a documentary, through the blue-green lens of a deep-sea camera, look at the eyes. Really look. Something is looking back, something ancient and strange and fully alive. And it is wondering about you too.